Welcome, Coach Human's Successful Life podcast. Today, we're going to cover a topic that I think is real important, often overlooked, absolutely often overlooked. And I'm putting this music in the background, by the way. I don't know if I like it or not after this episode. We'll see if we're going to keep this. But a topic that is often talked about, and you can see the Successful Life podcast on any Apple, iTunes. What else is it on? It's on Spotify, you name it, it's on there. And this is the launch of, I think it's season 5 now for Success for Life podcast. A lot of stuff, a lot of great interviews, but we're launching it today with topics. So this season, I'm going to be focused less on interviews and more on topics that can really help you out, give you an opportunity to succeed. Things that I've learned in my failures and successes. I think I've been able to navigate the landscape within my own business pretty successfully over the course of 20 years. And I feel that longevity and investment in one area has been one of the big things that's led to the success. Not jumping around everywhere, but really investing in one area. I think ultimately, in 1 year or 2 years, you may not see the returns, but in 15, 20 years, you do by that investment. And sometimes it's massive financial returns. Sometimes it's depth and width within your industry that will eventually get you where you need to be financially or successful wise. So, but today's topic is preparedness. So like and subscribe, no matter what you're on, whatever platform you're on. You can also find me at Coach Human on all social media. Like and subscribe, and you'll get more of this content. Hit the notifications bells if you can. Okay. All right, here we go. So we're going to talk today about preparedness. This is not a topic that is often talked about. And preparedness, I think, is and this is a quote from Douglas MacArthur. Those of you youngsters who don't know who Douglas MacArthur is, he is arguably one of the most successful generals in the history of the United States. Up there, top 10 general probably of all time, maybe top 5, and was critical in World War II to helping to win World War II. Really a great field general, leader. In someone who has knowledge, success, and tactics, fortitude, and strategy. So he said, preparedness is the key to success and victory. And so what we're talking about today is preparedness. How important is preparedness in everything you do? There's a lot of people that discuss and say that things like the ability to think on the fly are important. They are important, but it's your preparedness beforehand that allows you to make great decisions on the fly there. So let's move on, and I'm going to cover for you the key areas of preparedness. I love this little image here. When you get to the starting line, it's what you did before you get to the starting line that counts. Everything else is a completion from that preparedness. So what did you do? And that's why I talked about it. That's the first thing. What did you do from a preparedness standpoint to get yourself to that point? What did you do to be prepared to be able to succeed? It's not simply, and as you can see, this I used a little graphic of the checklist here. And those of you who are on the podcast portion, you can't see it, but I have a checklist as it's not simply a checklist of did you do it or did you not do it. The checklist is the starting point, and it's not necessarily a physical checklist, but the things that you have to take care of each day. One of the things that I do is I have endless papers of notes, and I have them in some organization in notebooks and some of it in disparate papers, and then I write it down in my iPhone notepad, notes or whatever you call it. I write it on physical paper. Every time I come up with something that I think I want to possibly implement, I put it down somewhere. Gets me thinking about it, gets me prepared for the steps that I have to do in order to. So whether you need to create a checklist, whether you need to write it down, whatever your process is, it's important to have the things that you're going to do that lead up to an actual action. The action is the key, but it's what you do leading up to that action. What is your practice methodologies in order to get yourself to the starting line? Okay, that is a really, really important part. What did you do to prepare for your success? Okay, could be going to college, could be practicing your sport, it could be reading a book. And you have to understand what are the key characteristics of your own situation, of your own category, of the business you're in, of the sport you play, in order to be able to have that preparedness and that element for success. Okay, and I don't know why on the slide thing it says here, but it says, how did you do it? So how did you do it? So we talked about what you did, okay, the actual items involved with it, training, preparing. The question now is, how did you do it? So I love this image of weightlifting, right? And doing the squat is the key to success. And over the years, by the way, squatting is how you squat. You know, they used to say you had to squat to parallel. Then they say you need full range of motion all the way down to your heels. Now there's new training methods called knees over toes. There's the GOTA method. Those of you who don't know what those are, you should look them up if you're serious about developing an athlete in the strength and conditioning field. Those are all things you need to understand. Well, how did you do it? What was your technique? What was your process? Process. I can't believe I lisped there, but what was your process? What did you do each day correctly in the way that you're supposed to do it in order to prepare to be successful? So how did you do it? Did you cut corners? Did you do it correctly every single time? Did you shorten your workout? Did you leave work an hour early because no one was there? Did you stay an hour later and be functional? Okay. How did you do it? I think that's a key element. One of the things as a coach I've always done, coaching football, for example, we've always focused on making sure you get the repetitions, as many repetitions as you can, good repetitions. So we want to get as close as possible to the correct technique until we get to, hopefully, some near level of perfection. You might hit it right a few times, but always getting consistently near the level of perfection. Okay, that's the goal. And you may hit perfection on some occasions. They always say perfect practice makes for a better performance. I say that if you can get to perfect practice, that's awesome. There's no such thing as a perfect practice, but you want to get as close to that as possible, and you want to get the repetitions necessary. One time is not enough. If you read, there's a great book called Outliers. I think it's called Outliers. Is it Outliers? I think it's Outliers. They talk about that. They have this study that you need 10,000 hours in order to become an expert. You know, what I agree with is that you need an extreme amount of effort in order to get to that point. Is it 10,000 hours? Is it 5,000 hours to become an expert? I don't know what that exact number is, but it's a high number. Okay, and it has to be done right. Your timeline. This is important. How much time do you have before you have to present to your boss on the annual projections? Do you have a week? Do you have a month? Do you have 30 days? Are you a procrastinator? Do you understand how your mentality is from that standpoint? What is your timeline? Do you have to get ready faster? Do you have 30 days to prepare for a game in football? Okay, from the time the game ends, the clock is ticking till the next week, usually 7 days later, for your next game. When you account for recovery, in high school or college, you're talking 3 days maybe of preparation on the field, and a lot of it is mental preparation with film study. And the more film study you get, the more you understand the mental reps. What are your mental reps, and how much do you need within your timeline? The more time you have, the more physical reps can get you where you need to be. The less time you have, you're going to have to combine physical with mental reps. Okay, so what is your timeline? You need to know your timeline in order to gauge out what your project that has to get done. That is critical. People misunderstand their timelines. Okay, and I could probably talk about timeline for a long time. No pun intended. But your practice. So what's your practice like? So in order for preparedness, your practice has to have a plan. Your plan of action for the day. It could be a couple of notes. Okay, how you're going to attack the day. It could be the 10 people you have to call today. Okay, then you're going to go and take advantage of that. On the football field, we have practice plans, not just practicing the practice and then going to the game. We have practice plans. We have plans for our plans. Okay. Now you can get overly wrapped up in planning for these things. You need bullet points, things you need to hit on within your time frame in order to have a good practice. And then, like I talked about, focus on making those reps as good as possible. Okay. That is the key. The key is to make those reps as good as possible. What is your practice look like? What does that practice plan? What is that schedule for the day? How are you enacting it? And what is the actions necessary to make that a successful practice, successful task, successful presentation? So what do you have to do? If you're going to present in front of a crowd and you're a person that needs to have things memorized, then you need to practice in front of a mirror, in front of a family member. Okay, these are key elements to being able to make sure that you're successful and you have that preparedness. Okay, your knowledge, and this is the final element of it. Okay, what is your knowledge? So before you get to that starting line, like we talked about, what have you done? Okay, right? What have you done to get to that starting line so it just becomes automatic? What is your knowledge? What are the things you need to know, the necessary items that you need to know in order to have the knowledge in order to be prepared for your event, your game, your presentation, your strategy, your sales opportunity, your speech? What is the knowledge necessary and the items that you have to gain in order to be successful in your endeavor and to be prepared for it? If you don't have the necessary knowledge, when you take questions, when other people have questions about what you do, you will not have the substantial information. Okay. And in football, we talk about, okay, what is the answer to what someone else does? So a good example is we have a offensive play we practice. The team will play against will have a defense of play, a counter to stop that. Just like if you give a presentation to an investor, potential investor, you need to know what questions may come up. You need to have the background knowledge so you can answer those questions effectively to raise the funds necessary. Okay, so those are important things. And you need to know what the objections are. Same thing within your own staff from a coaching standpoint, football. Same thing within your own players. Same thing with what the team you play against. Your knowledge is the key. So if you do all those things successfully, okay, you will be prepared. That's the key element for preparedness. And it's an important topic if you're looking to become successful. And I love this quote because it just preparedness is the key to success and victory. If you fail to prepare, you're preparing to fail. One of the most famous quotes of all time. I don't know who said it, but preparedness is the key to success and victory. This is an ongoing, all the time thing. You must make sure you understand those elements in order to be prepared to be successful, to have an opportunity to succeed, to get yourself to the starting line with confidence, to be able to execute on what you need to do. Like and subscribe. This is Coach Schumann signing off. At Coach Schumann on all social media. Follow me on TikTok as well. Twitter. We're doing Twitter Spaces. We're doing it all. Those of you athletes that are on, obviously you can see us at nucsports.com, myfootballcamps.com, and the Success for Life podcast is on all platforms, Apple, Spotify, you name it, it's on there. Like and subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you very, very soon. Also, if you guys can send some comments about what you'd like to see next, I'm always open to taking requests, and I thank you for being on here. As always, you've made this podcast over the years one of the most successful in the world, amazingly, just by giving practical information to you to be able to help you get an opportunity to succeed. Coach Schumann signing off. Thanks for being on Success for Life podcast.